The Online Student, Markscheme for November 2025 Examination Session, IB Economics, SL/HL, Paper 2. Level 1, Vague Definition. The idea that inflation is a rise in prices or general price level without further precision. 1 mark. Level 2, Accurate Definition. An explanation that inflation rate is the sustained increase in the average price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time, usually a year, often measured by a consumer price index, CPI. 2 marks. Level 1, Vague Definition. The idea that the current account balance is about exports and imports without detail. 1 mark. Level 2, Accurate Definition. An explanation that the current account balance is a record of a country's trade in goods and services, net income from abroad, and net current transfers over a period of time. It shows the net flow of funds between the country and the rest of the world from these transactions. 2 marks. GDP in 2020 equals to $40.8 billion US. GDP in 2025 equals to $48.0 billion US. Percentage change equals open parenthesis 48.0 minus 40.8 close parenthesis divided by 40.8, then multiplied by 100 equals 17.65%. Any valid working showing how the percentage change is calculated is sufficient for 1 mark. A correct final answer of 17.65% or 18% without working is sufficient for 1 mark. Current account equals exports minus imports plus net income plus net current transfers. 2020. Export equals 10.5, imports equals 11.7, net income equals negative 0.3, net current transfers equals 0.4. Calculation CA equals 10.5, minus 11.7, plus negative 0.3 plus 0.4 equals $1.1 billion. 2022. Exports equals 11.8, imports equals 13.3, net income equals negative 0.4, net current transfers equals 0.5, calculation CA equals 11.8 minus 13.3 plus negative 0.4 plus 0.5 equals $1.4 billion. 2025. Exports equals 13.0, imports equals 14.3, net income equals negative 0.2, net current transfers equals 0.5, for calculation CA equals 13.0 minus 14.3 plus negative 0.2 plus 0.5 equals 1.0 billion. Any valid working or formula application is sufficient for 1 mark. Correct calculations of 2 years with figures close to the above values merit. 2 marks. All 3 correct calculations with no significant errors merit. 3 marks. Level 1. There is the correct diagram or an accurate written response. Diagram correctly labeled Lorenz curve showing the line of equality and 1 Lorenz curve. Or explanation, basic explanation that the Gini index measures income inequality, that a value of about 0.45 shows moderate inequality in Bolivia between 2020 and 2025. Increasing values or a Lorenz curve further from the line shows rising inequality. 1 to 2 marks. Level 2. There is a correct diagram and an accurate written response. Diagram, correct Lorenz curve diagram, labeled with line of equality, and 2 Lorenz curves for 2020 and 2025, showing the slight outward bow in 2025 to illustrate inequality. And explanation, clear explanation that the Gini index of around 0.45 means there is moderate income inequality in Bolivia. That little change between 2020 and 2025 suggests stable but persistent inequality. 3 to 4 marks. Candidates who incorrectly label diagrams can be awarded a maximum of 3 marks. For the Lorenz curve, the vertical axis should be labeled as cumulative percentage of income or wealth. The horizontal axis should be cumulative percentage of population. A title is not necessary. Level 1. There is a correct diagram or an accurate written response. Diagram, correctly labeled AD/AS diagram showing aggregate demand, AD and short-run aggregate supply, SRAS with an outward/rightward shift in AD due to increased FDI inflows. Or explanation, basic explanation that an increase in FDI net inflows increases aggregate demand in Bolivia, leading to higher real GDP and possibly higher price level. 1 to 2 marks. Level 2, there is a correct diagram and an accurate written response. Diagram, AD/AS diagram with correctly labeled axes, price level and real GDP, initial equilibrium, rightward shift in AD curve, and new equilibrium marked. And explanation, clear explanation that increased FDY inflows boost investment, consumption, and aggregate demand, resulting in higher real output and potentially higher inflation, linked explicitly to Bolivia. 3 to 4 marks. Candidates who incorrectly label diagrams can be awarded a maximum of 3 marks. For AD/AS, the vertical axis may be average general price level, APL, or price level. The horizontal axis may be real output, real national output, real income, real national income, real GDP, or real Y. A title is not necessary. There is a correct diagram or an accurate written response. Diagram, correctly labeled foreign exchange market diagram showing demand and supply curves for Bolivianos, with a rightward shift of the demand curve or leftward shift in supply, indicating currency appreciation, or explanation, basic explanation that an appreciating Boliviano makes Bolivian exports more expensive and imports cheaper, likely reducing exports and increasing imports 1 to 2 marks level 2. There is a correct diagram and an accurate written response. Diagram, correctly labeled exchange rate diagram with axes, price of Boliviano in USD, vertical and quantity of Bolivianos, horizontal. Curves labeled demand and supply, a rightward shift of the demand curve, or a leftward shift of the supply curve, showing appreciation and new equilibrium clearly marked. And explanation, clear explanation that appreciation of the Boliviano increases the foreign currency price of exports, making them less competitive internationally, and decreases the local currency price of imports, making imports more attractive, potentially leading to a reducing trade balance effect as Bolivia's export volumes fall and import volumes rise. 3 to 4 marks. Candidates who incorrectly label diagrams can be awarded a maximum of 3 marks. For an exchange rate diagram, the vertical axis may be exchange rate, price of the Boliviano in other currency, typically USD, or other currency, typically USD, per Boliviano. The horizontal axis should be quantity or quantity of Boliviano. A title is not necessary. Level 1, there is a correct diagram or an accurate written response. Diagram, production possibility curve, PPC, labeled with 2 different goods, services, or sectors. Example, mining and natural gas production on one axis, agriculture on the other, clearly showing the trade-off between them, or explanation, basic explanation of opportunity cost as the value of the next best alternative foregone. Recognizing that allocating more resources to mining and natural gas production means fewer resources available for agriculture. 1 to 2 marks. Level 2, there is a correct diagram and an accurate written response. Diagram, PPC correctly labeled with axes for mining, natural gas production and agriculture, demonstrated movement along the curve illustrating the trade-off. The curve bowed outward to indicate increasing opportunity cost. And explanation, clear explanation that Bolivia faces opportunity cost when reallocating resources to mining and natural gas, meaning producing more in this sector reduces agricultural output. The PPC illustrates this trade-off, showing scarcity and the cost of choice in resource allocation. 3 to 4 marks. Candidates who incorrectly label diagrams can be awarded a maximum of 3 marks. For PPC, the vertical axis should be mining/natural gas, and the horizontal axis should be agriculture. A title for the diagram is not necessary. Examiners should be aware that candidates may take a different approach, which, if appropriate, should be rewarded. Command term discuss requires candidates to offer a considered and balanced review that includes a range of arguments, factors, or hypotheses. Opinions or conclusions should be presented clearly and supported by appropriate evidence. Responses may include explanation of the difference between economic growth, increase in real GDP, and economic development, improvements in living standards, HDI, reduction in poverty and inequality, explanation of sources of economic growth, such as expansion of productive capacity, investment, technological progress, and sources of economic development, education, health, poverty reduction, explanation of the link between growth and development. Growth can provide the resources for improving living standards, but development requires effective redistribution and social policies to reduce inequality and improve human capital. Explanation of fiscal policy as government spending and taxation aimed at influencing the economy. Possible fiscal policy measures and related points from the Bolivia case. Increased government spending on social protection, cash transfers, pensions, school meals, healthcare subsidies targeted at vulnerable groups help reduce poverty and inequality. Text A, paragraph 8. Expanding coverage and improving targeting can enhance equity and human development and public investment in infrastructure and human capital. Investments improve productivity, create jobs, and boost growth potential. Paragraphs 2 and 10. Infrastructure spending can reduce regional disparities, rural versus urban, supporting inclusive development. Provision of incentives for small businesses and attracting FDI to diversify the economy. Encouraging investment in mining, renewable energy and manufacturing can promote structural transformation and sustainable growth. Paragraphs 1 to 10. Targeted subsidies and incentives for small businesses and low-income groups to stimulate inclusive growth. Paragraph 11. Challenges and limitations, rising public and external debt. Paragraph 6. May constrain fiscal space, limiting sustained expenditure increases. Fiscal deficits and borrowing costs may force austerity, potentially reducing social spending. Implementation capacity and governance issues may affect efficiency and targeting of fiscal measures. Taxation policies, broadening the tax base and improving revenue mobilization can fund social and infrastructure programs sustainably. Progressive taxation could reduce inequality, but may face administrative and political challenges, risks and trade-offs. Excessive government borrowing risks, crowding out private investment and increasing inflation. Balancing short-term fiscal consolidation with long-term development goals is crucial. Alignment with Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Fiscal policies can support SDGs, especially SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, And SDG 10 reduced inequalities through coordinated spending and reforms. Overall assessment. Fiscal policy can be effective, but success depends on careful design, efficient implementation, and macroeconomic stability. Conditional cash transfers and targeted investment show promise, but must be complemented by improved tax systems and institutional reforms. External shocks, commodity prices, climate risks, pose ongoing challenges, necessitating flexible fiscal frameworks. Any reasonable discussion? Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe.